room. We can't go and say within 6 feet, with a mask, without a mask, et cetera. So we basically are saying we take that COVID positive individual and trace their day, and anybody who they had contact with for 15 or more minutes gets that quarantine phone call. So, and then once a student or adult, et cetera, is quarantined, that means that they have to stay out for 14 days. It's a mandatory 14-day because you can show symptoms up to 14 days later. And at the end of that, that's when they can return to school. So that's the quick and dirty of the contact tracing piece. Again, I can't get into like, was it a student, was an adult? I believe that there is a report card that is available through the state, which shares some of that information, but that's not something that we are sharing for HIPAA rules, et cetera. So I'm sure that there are some follow-up questions though, so I'm happy to answer as specifically as I possibly can without violating any of that piece as well.
I had one question, Jeff.
Sure.
Can you test out of that quarantine, or it's 14 days for sure?
Yeah, so it's 14 days for sure as far as the school is concerned. The Department of Health and contact tracers can overrule that 14-day. So what happens is we produce a list, we send it to the Department of Health and the contact tracing people. If they, in their research, find that there wasn't a reason to quarantine somebody, or they wouldn't need a full 14 days, something like that, then they can overrule us, and the Department of Health would then send them an email saying you're eligible to return to school. We haven't had any of those yet, but part of the speech that we give to people when we call for quarantine is by saying that the Department of Health can contact you and say that you could return early.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions with that?
I just want to say thank you for keeping our kids safe, and thank you for preventing the contagion in the school. From what I understand, all the cases came from some other contact. So it's great experience and progress so far.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, obviously I think if you're watching the news right now, that you realize that, a lot of the contacts are happening in small gatherings, et cetera, outside of school. And so we have our screener each day that our staff is completing. We have the screener each day that our students are completing, or our nurses are following up with those families who haven't done their screening. So, we're trying to do the best that we can. But it's, again, it's hard, where the students are in school for 7 to 7.5 hours. If you add busing and that kind of stuff, and there's a lot of time outside of school. So there's a lot of faith that we are putting into our community and hoping that everybody's doing the right thing. And even when you are, it still doesn't matter sometimes. There have been, contacts that we've heard about, with parents going to work, et cetera. So that just kind of is what it is, and we're going to roll with it, and hope that the vaccine news is very helpful to our overall cause of getting back to normal. Any non-COVID questions? Any questions that people have, or related to instruction during COVID times, et cetera? I'd love to answer any of those questions. And then I just do have a question for those of you who are on right now. We did just send out our From the Middle. So I was wondering, out of curiosity, do you read it? Do you check out just where your child is and then kind of go from there? I'd love to just hear some feedback, and just in terms of communication. It's a lot to put together. So I'd just love to hear from you if it's something that you're scanning the entire 20-something pages, or if it's something that you're just looking kind of for where your child is and going from there. This is what's called wait time
Hello.
in the class.
Oh, sorry. I'll say something. I think it's very informative, especially during this time when you feel a little bit disconnected from the school and what's going on with their child. I think it's really helpful to see, you know, all of the wonderful things that the school is putting together and doing. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw something in the chat, so thank you.
On a sort of related topic, I have sort of a question and suggestion. I know my son specifically, talking about disconnected, being online, it is a lot harder for him to connect and to connect to the teacher or to get all his homework done or to focus in on class when he's in his room. So I hope teachers are trying to do, and I know there's a lot of effort and time they're putting into this. I hope they're doing a little bit more of an outreach and a little bit more of a personal connection with the students to be sure that they encourage them to, you know, focus a bit more. It's easier to do it in the classroom when there is, you know, you're right in front of all the students, but perhaps one-on-one, I'm just, you know, making a suggestion. If you talk to the teachers, suggest a little bit more of a keeping on top of how they're doing, and maybe they're, you know, some of the students that are not doing so well. A midterm report is, I think, not enough.
Okay. That's good feedback. And so again, so this is, imagine I've got my coffee. So I know this is a coffee. So if there are any questions any of you have on any topic, that's why we're here today, to open up those lines of communication. Antoinette, to your point of, this is the opportunity to do the same thing with families. So if you have any questions or anything you'd like me to respond to, I mean, that's great feedback that I can bring back to the teachers. But if anybody else has any feedback or questions or anything like that that you'd like to ask right now, now's the time.
Yeah, I too agree that it would be nice if there's a way to have the teachers check in with the kids that are more remote, more fully remote, to make sure that they're able to get to all their assignments. But also, if there are materials that need to be picked up, my understanding is all the teachers are doing it a little bit differently. Some of them are sending emails home to the parents to let them know. Some of them are emailing the students, and some are just mentioning it in class to the students. I happen to have one who gets it mentioned in class, and then it's a, you know, a mad dash to the school the morning that the materials are needed. So if there's any way to like integrate the parents into that, or I can at least check his email, so just in case, so that I can make sure he has all of the necessary materials. Also, if there's printouts or something that's needed, like emailing those so I can have them prepared before class, because I'm more than happy to be a support for the teachers on my end. I just can't if I don't have the information.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And are you able to access the Schoology piece? Can you see the resources? Can you see those types of things through Schoology as a parent?
Yeah, I can. And so for certain teachers, I can see that there's stuff, but sometimes, so this is the thing, it's all different. Like one teacher will post it in Schoology, another teacher will email it to his Microsoft account, and another teacher will just mention it in class, say, hey, tell your parents they have to stop by sometime this week by Friday to pick this up for next week, or I need you to pick it up today for class tomorrow. And you know, like by the end of class, my son will be moving on to the next thing and, you know, barely getting into the next class and completely forget about it. And I know that they need to be, you know, more responsible, but it's also making it a little more hectic, and it's already a little chaotic, you know, hopping from class to class and making sure all the materials are there. So just a way for me to be able to back him up.
Okay. Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Could I? I'm just talking to Sasha about school and all that. What's your feeling like? What's the attendance? How many children are? Is it like kind of empty rooms, or depend on situations or days?
Yeah. So right now, the attendance is down a little bit right now. It has to do with a quarantining situation. So that's probably as far as I can go. As far as I can go with that, as far as information goes. But we've also received a lot of requests from parents to stay home. If there's a major event coming up in a family, the parent would say, I want to just make sure that the child is safe because we have a major celebration coming up with our family. Everybody's quarantining for 2 weeks so that we can, be together safely. Other people, I think, saw the case, that we shared last week. I know there was another email last night and said, I'm just going to give it the week just to make sure that there's not other cases that pop up. So each family, I think, is making their own decision, and that's okay. I think that the benefit for us right now is that we do have a hybrid situation. So we are used to students being in the building and used to students being at home, and then kind of blending those two pieces. So there were classes that did not have many students in them yesterday, depending on the grade. But again, that's something that we're rolling with, and we're trying to do our best to just make sure that there is an adult in every class right now, and the teacher, whether they are at home or in school, is leading that instruction. Hopefully that answers your question without violating anybody's. Okay, all right, good.
I don't know if my question was clear enough, but definitely your answer gave me.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yep.
So just a question on top of that. If the parents are requesting that the kids be out for 14 days so that they're prepared for a family gathering, is the school then requiring them after that family gathering to also quarantine for a certain number of days or get a test before they enter back into school, since that they're at a gathering?
Yeah, so again, that specific one, the one that I'm talking about, is a very small group, and they've shared that, it's only people in their own group. They just don't want to bring, something to the group and have to cancel it for some reason. So that's what they're doing. Again, that's something that we're hoping is a community type of decision, that if somebody does go, I think there was something on the news this morning about a wedding in Long Island. It was like 146 people or something like that gathered, and they had to shut down a couple of local schools or districts once they found out about it. And that's the hard part right now, is that we really are putting our faith in our community to do the right thing and to come back in quarantine or look for symptoms and that kind of thing. But each family, it's really up to them to make the right decision for the community, and we're just hopeful that people are going to continue to do that.
And is that the hope for like Thanksgiving and Christmas as well? Like just that people are just gonna do the right thing for the community?
Yeah, I don't think that, I think the other side of the spectrum is a police state. I mean, that's the hard part about the whole thing is, I'm sure that there will be a reminder, and even with the superintendent's email that came out last night, it's just, make sure to maintain your social distancing, hand washing, wearing a mask, etc. And if everybody can agree to those pieces, that hopefully, people will do the right thing around Thanksgiving, etc. But again, we can't, it's not something that we can enforce. It's just something that is an expectation, just like the mask wearing, the hand washing, the social distancing, etc.
I joined late, so you might have already addressed this, but the Wednesday schedule, is that, like, do you envision that staying the same at least through like the holiday break, or are they looking to do more of the synchronous learning? Yeah,
so that is definitely something that we've been talking about as administrators recently, just what that could look like. We do want to include teacher voices in that as well. So we had a meeting yesterday where we just started as administrators talking about ideas, and really it came down to let's include the teachers. I think we're getting a lot of good feedback from families about what they would like. And so we're trying to balance kind of the needs of everyone. I think that there still is a tremendous amount of professional learning happening for our teachers. It's the ability to connect. We're able to put a lot of our meetings. So for any of you who have students with an IEP, we're able to put all of the CSE meetings on those days as well to limit the interruption in instruction for the rest of the time. So we're trying to like balance. There's a lot that goes into those Wednesdays now, and there's a lot of pushing and pulling. And we know that we do want our students to have a little more time as well, whether it's a check-in. I know we talked about, even like our fully remote students, it could be a great opportunity to check in with students there for students who are struggling. Interim reports just came out. We'd love to be able to connect with our students who just need a little more structure in their day. So it's definitely something we're looking at, but we don't have a firm plan yet. I think that when we do look at the calendar, we would probably think about a Thanksgiving break change or a December change, because we didn't have a Wednesday. We won't have a Wednesday this week. We'll have one next week, and I didn't look further out than that. But I can just tell you that our teachers are finding great value, and my hope is that with that time, they're able to align instruction depending on the team that they're on, and just make sure that they're sharing some of those best practices of what does Zoom look like. Hey, I was able to use breakout rooms and also able to check in with students, et cetera, et cetera. So there really is a tremendous amount of learning that is happening. I mean, when we think about a year ago, I don't even think anybody knew Zoom, unless, I think that there was like a TV show, Zoom or something like that back in the 70s or 80s. So some of you may know Zoom that way, but a lot of us didn't know Zoom and even what it was. And now it's just something that we do every day. So when you think about the professional learning that's happened in the meantime, we're hoping to continue that momentum going. A great question. We hadn't talked about that until you brought it up. So thank you for bringing that up. Other questions or concerns? I will let you know that the Veterans Day slideshow, our Heroes slideshow, will be sent out later today. So for any of you who did send in pictures or anything like that, we will send that out so that you can share it via email with a veteran or with a loved one, et cetera, that's part of your life. So we'll be sending that out later today. The background may look similar when you see that. So again, thank you. I was hopeful that we'd be able to do our third annual, but it'll just have to be virtual like everything else this year.
Jeff, I was just curious, how do you feel like the sixth grade transition is going now that we're a couple of months in? And I know at one point, Ms. Brooks, or maybe it was Ms. Bermise, was talking about how a lot of the kids the sixth graders especially, are very quiet throughout the day. Has that sort of changed? Is it a little more natural now?
Yeah, I think it's a little more natural. I think the hardest part, I think, for our sixth graders was that, they missed the end of their fifth grade year. So they missed kind of like all those natural things that happen as kind of like the rites of passage coming up. So they missed their fifth grade moving up ceremony. And there has been a lot of, and I will say that this is probably a 6 through 8 piece. There has been a lot of like, this is school again, everybody. There are assignments. I think last year we were very lenient, knowing that the pandemic did bring on a lot of stresses for people. And the transition back to here's an assignment and here's a due date and make sure you get it in, that has been, I think, probably the biggest transition for our entire 6th through 8th grade. We're hearing from the high school, probably from the 9th and 10th graders as well, that has been probably our 11th and 12th graders thinking about college. That's enough of a like a thought, of a finish line piece there for them to keep them motivated. But I think for our adolescents, I think that they've struggled a little bit more. But as far as like getting to know the building and getting to know people, it's very interesting that the only way you know a lot of sixth graders is through like their eyes and their hair. You know, you're used to being able to see smiles, and you know, that's, I think, the hardest part for all of us is that, you know, we get into this business because it's a people profession, and eliminating half of a face is not easy. So I think teachers are laughing at some of their own jokes, but as far as like students getting around the building, getting used to the expectations here, I think that they're doing better. But you know, at the same time, somebody did ask a question before about our fully virtual students, and you know, I don't think it's the same connection. So, and I don't know the right answer for how do we connect with students through a virtual environment. Again, being able to see all of your faces is nice here, but you know, when you have students, you know, who have half a face covered in a classroom and other students who are online, there's clearly something missing, and I feel like we're doing the best that we can in our current environment, and hopeful that that changes, you know, hopefully before the end of the year. So long-winded way to say, you know, again, I think our sixth graders are doing well with navigating the building. I think that they're doing well. I love our two-person team system here, because at least we do get to see the same students for a, you know, long part of the day. And so, you know, I think that that's really, really good. And for our seventh graders, you know, it's almost like the second half of their sixth grade year right now, you know, but on a team, et cetera. So I think students are walking around with a pep in their step. They're doing well. You know, we do have a half of our students moving through the hallway, and then 2 minutes later, we move the other half of the students through the hallway, just to limit the amount of interactions that people have with each other. But even saying that sentence, that's hard. You know, you're limiting interactions between people who don't see each other all day because you don't want to, you know, spread the virus. So that's really, really hard. And it's almost like in direct conflict with what we do as a school and how we try to build community, et cetera.
On that note, if I could just mention, and maybe I'm unrealistic in my hope that after school opportunities can connect kids in the absence of being able to connect in the school, but I thought that you did a great job with a process for helping kids to find their way to extracurricular activities now on Zoom, you know, just clear instructions and how to add the groups in Schoology. And I guess I just would encourage you to encourage the teachers to really promote those opportunities, and also to spread the message that it's not too late. I think about like 7th and 8th graders who maybe didn't join a certain club last year, and maybe they feel apprehensive about showing up to a Zoom for something they've never tried before, but especially because we can't let them stay after school for intramurals, there's no modified sports. I feel like there are dozens, maybe hundreds of kids who just really are experiencing a loss of what to do after school and inability to connect with their friends. And again, I might be unrealistic about what the clubs can accomplish, but I just really hope that the teachers can help be good ambassadors for those opportunities and for helping kids feel like it's never too late to just hop on a Zoom, and you don't know who's going to be there, and maybe you'll make some new friends based on a shared interest, which is, you know, like such an important part of middle school. So anyway, just wanted to thank you for what you've done already and encourage the momentum so that kids feel like they can still show up even if they haven't already.
Absolutely. Thank you. That, again, just a great reminder of, you know, we continue to try to layer in more opportunities for students. But yeah, that piece is missing. Again, you know, usually that's something we do in an assembly, like try something new, the person next to you, maybe your new best friend, that kind of thing. So getting that information out has been difficult, but thank you. I think that we do have a good structure where kids can check out. So maybe, you know, we'll have to make sure that that goes out to families and to our students. We continue to announce every day, just try to log in, and we get, you know, probably 3 to 5 notifications every day of students joining our Schoology page for the JJMS Clubs page. But again, like that piece of connecting and making new friendships, I think still is interesting in a pandemic situation. So we'll do our best to remind students of that. Thank you.
If I could just add one thing, I'm sorry, but even as you were speaking, it caused me to think about yet another group of students. I think that it's important to acknowledge that the experience of being told to quarantine can be very stressful for children at this age, especially if they're being asked to quarantine outside of what is perceived to be the throng of their cohort, you know, sort of like singled out for unique punishment and having to quarantine. So even there, although I think the school's doing an excellent job with a personal phone call, which I'm sure takes a ton of time and all of that, but even if there is a way to just, you know, send a communication to all the kids who are quarantining at a particular moment in time and to say, we still see you, we haven't forgotten about you, we know this is hard, it's going to get better, and in the meantime, maybe you should try a club after school. You know, I think there's like a unique vulnerability now that children are experiencing. It's, you know, everybody experiences these things differently. Some kids probably find it awesome, you know, they don't have to go to school at all, and other kids are super stressed out because this is a change to their hybrid model. So I just, again, would encourage like real sensitivity and reaching out to those kids to try to help them stay connected and feel seen.
Thank you.
I just have a question. I don't know if I'm on here. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
I'm new to Zoom, so I just wanted to kind of go back to Antoinette's question, comment about the progress reports. And it seemed like in, you know, a time when we kind of need more information, that I felt like we got less information. Usually there's a grade range and kind of some more personalized comments. And I just wanted to know if there was a reason behind that. I know that a lot of information is posted on Schoology as far as grades that they got, but it's not, I mean, I was sitting there like adding up, you know, doing my math calculations, trying to figure out where my son falls. I just want to ask about that.
Yeah, sure. So great question. So we decided to do the pass, in danger of failing or failing piece because we did ask our teachers to spend so much time on the social emotional connection with students at the beginning of the year, that when we looked at it, when, you know, interims came kind of onto our radar for this year, for this first trimester, we said, oh, we're fearful that there's going to be too many students with a low grade range on, you know, one assessment or just a couple of assignments, just because we did just put so much stress on connections, et cetera, at the beginning of the year. So we didn't want to stress too many people out. Although at the same time, you know, at looking at some of the comments afterwards, again, as I said earlier, there are some students who did need probably that kick in the butt of, you know, there are some assignments that, you know, these are not suggestions anymore, they're assignments. So, so we eliminated that, the grade range piece, just because we didn't want to put too much stress, but knowing that some families were probably fine with that and other families were calculating grades, et cetera. So again, you can always reach out to the teacher. They can give you an up-to-date range or grade if you are worried about that. You know, I think that the 8th grade probably is the most stressed because some of those grades may, you know, go on a high school transcript, et cetera. But for our 6th and 7th grade students, I would think that, you know, hopefully it's just about getting back into school and, you know, completing assignments when they're assigned, et cetera, et cetera.
Will the next progress report show more? I mean, I know nobody knows at this point what the world's going to be like, but.
Yes, we did just that one, again, only because we spent so much time, excuse me, at the beginning of the year, just talking about connections and connecting with students and doing social emotional activities at the beginning of each lesson, that we didn't want to put any extra stresses on our teachers or our families, you know, with a number of students in the C range or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
But at the same time, we did want to let people know if their child was in danger of failing. So, you know, it's kind of like, it's the hybrid model of grading. How about that?
So given this challenging learning environment, is grading going to be a little inflated? I just feel like a lot of what I see on my son's numbers, you know, the grade numbers, a lot of stuff is missing. Some stuff is not great, or maybe was late. Yeah, it's a little bit concerning of how the grades are going to end up, especially for some students who are not adjusting so well to the remote learning.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that to me was, I think the overwhelming message when we looked back at the interim reports is how many students are struggling to get things done, especially in that remote environment. I will tell you, just from my own kids at home, I have a 6th grader at home who has done the exact same thing. You know, and once or twice a week, we are emailing teachers just saying, you know, what work does she owe? Luckily, we have an online grading system, so we're able to kind of, you know, follow through on that piece. So, you know, part of that interim report was making sure that as a parent, you are logging into your child's account or logging in next to your child and saying, what is not complete, so that you can make that up. And sometimes a phone has traveled with me to school because it is a major distraction when that said child is home alone. So, you know, those are just some of the decisions that we've had to make as a family in order to control some of those options that are available, you know, when a child is supposed to be doing online learning during the day. And just so you're aware, so everyone's aware, those kind of like expectations of keeping your camera on that we have as a school are helping to keep kids accountable. We feel like, at least, that when the camera's on, I'm a little more accountable than just logging in for attendance and then shutting my camera off. There's definitely, I feel, at least as a parent and as an educator, much more accountability to that. There are some articles, et cetera, and some expectations that other people have about the social emotional wellness of a student, especially in adolescence, who is having a tough time at home, et cetera. And so we just ask our students to communicate with their teachers to say, my camera's gonna be off today, I'm having a really tough day at home, whether it's an interaction or a bad grade or, you know, just something going on in their personal lives. But we want our students to communicate that with our teachers, to know that they are, why the camera is off. But the expectation is that it will be on, just like it is for a business meeting, et cetera.
I have another question. Is it too early to know, or are there rumors, or do we know if Regents are going to be happening this year?
So we don't know about the June Regents yet, but the winter Regents were just canceled. That doesn't affect us as a middle school because we don't give Regents in January. But from the state, those were just canceled, the January ones. So we don't know yet, and we probably won't know. So it's like, that's another really tough position to be in, right? So, you know, we're saying to teachers, really connect with your students, et cetera. And at the same time, we're still preparing for Regents that would occur in June. So like, that's a really tough position to be in. And that really is a push and a pull from that perspective, is that we have students in for 40% of the instruction in school. We've got 80% of the instruction with 4 out of 5 days. And we need to, especially for those Regents classes, we still, we haven't been able to say to teachers, like, take a deep breath, because, you know, those Regents exams can still happen. So that's those are probably I would say the teachers that are probably the most stressed in our building right now. And I would venture to guess the high school as well, for those external measures of which we are, you know, graded as a district, and teachers are graded on their evaluation system to say, oh yeah, don't worry about that. And they haven't been canceled yet. So great question.
Thanks.
So just circling back to the being able to check in on the students' progress and work and their homework that's due. We are full remote, but we also wind up within the parent Schoology account to my son's account, to my daughter's account, who's in the elementary school, the past due assignments section doesn't seem to jive with what they've actually done and haven't done. And then, so I find myself going into individual classes to check and see if the assignments have been submitted. But then there are other teachers that also do stuff in a different platform, like in Teams or something. So if that's been, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of places to go to check to see if stuff has been submitted. But then after you've done that, you check at the end of the week to make sure everything's done. And then Schoology says that there's tons of stuff that's missing, but then you're going back and double checking and it's available or it's there. So it's just, there's a lot of glitches or disconnects between the programs talking to one another or saying it's handed in or not handed in. And then we are also getting emails from some of the teachers like, oh, this assignment was only half done. But when we go into the assignment in the Word document, it's actually all there. And I've had to screenshot it and send it to the teacher because there's no way for us to resubmit. So there's a few like glitches in the system, and it does bring a ton of anxiety to the children that are like, oh my God, I did this assignment. Do I have to do it again? Only half of it's here. And they're feeling like they're failing when they're actually, you know, really trying to get it all done. And I'm worried that it's gonna turn into, well, whatever, you know what, I already did it and I'm done doing it again. And I've definitely run into those obstacles. So I'm sure there are other parents that are also dealing with that. But it's something that like, I know you guys are working on Schoology, and I like that there's a platform for us to go to and see those things, and I appreciate it. It's just that there are still some big glitches in the program that are causing some extra stress. And if there's a way to tweak that to help out, it'd be good to be able to have one place to look and make sure the assignments are handed in and fully completed or checked off or commented on.
I will tell you, I don't know if you were looking at the other faces, but I'm able to from my view, and I think every person was nodding along with you. So I'll take that as the feedback that, you know, that again, just from a K-12 perspective, just to say like, what are the next steps for Schoology, I think would be an important thing to do.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
I believe as well, because we have that all the time, the list of overdue things versus what she says she's submitted. It differs because the cohorts that are in school may do it in school, and then if you're at home, you don't submit it for another few days. And the remote kids may also have been assigned something, and it doesn't tally up until both cohort A, cohort B, and remote have all submitted it. And even if you've submitted it, but the rest, I don't know, but at the end of the week, it helps. Sometimes it's cleared a bit, but definitely causes stress because she'll tell you she's done everything or she submitted it, or the teacher said to give it to them in paper when they go to school a few days later, but it's still up as an overdue submission on Schoology. So yeah, I guess everyone has the same there.
Okay.
One question I have somewhat connected to this is if there is a possibility of spreading out the times that teachers have their office hours or whatever you want to call the extra help. Because right now, just on Wednesday, even if all is going well and my kids have been remote most of the time this year, it's just a nice way for them to connect. If I know it's drop-in, it's not just an appointment with them, but that there are fewer people in there and the teacher can talk to them individually. And then if there are questions about, I thought I submitted this, but you know, sometimes it's just was submitted the wrong way. Because we're finding that the kids have to choose between their teachers, and with 6th grade it's easier because they only have a few teachers, but 8th grade, I have an 8th grader too. There's not enough time to meet with them all and just check in with them.
Yeah, so let me just tell you where that decision came from. So the Wednesday was chosen because it was the day, and again, this was kind of like our September thinking, but a K-12 decision on extra help being on Wednesdays because students were already going to be home and we could start right after the school day. You know, subsequently though, we've had some students on buses when extra help is happening, et cetera. But we chose Wednesday because we could start right after school because students were going to be home. And our fear is by putting it on other days, we're then limiting kids from being there. So that's why we made the decision. It doesn't mean that we have to stick with a decision that was made though 2 months ago. So again, we'll make sure that we try to bring that up in a K-12 conversation.
And another thought would just be to keep it still on Wednesday, but maybe
Yep.
have it during like lunchtime. I know kids do different activities on Wednesdays, but at least it's an option, maybe some teachers at lunch.
Yes, we
Yeah.
talked a little bit about Wednesdays before. And again, that's something we're trying to fit into that 7 hours on Wednesdays, including professional development, et cetera. But those check-ins with students as well. Again, we started to talk about that as an administrative group yesterday. Again, what can work and does it need to be the same at elementary as it does for the secondary schools? So those are some of the questions that we're starting to talk about to develop a plan for it. I saw some other people unmuted before, so if there's anything else you did wanted to add to that Schoology piece, feel free. All right, so I'll take the wait time and just, summarize a little bit. Again, for those of you who your children are in school every day, or at least, 2 to, actually, let me give you one more update before I close up. We do continue, and I know that the superintendent said this during the board meeting the other night, but I don't know how many of you, sorry, Marjorie, how many of you are watching the board meetings? We do continue to look for groups of students to bring back, to kind of, at the same time as we're quarantining students, we're also looking for more students that we, students with special education needs, et cetera, that we're trying to bring back. So we do continue to look for opportunities and look at class sizes and maintaining our social distancing and masking, while also bringing back students who have special needs or who are struggling, et cetera. So we continue to look at that as a school, as a secondary level, and as a K-12 level. So I did want to put that in there just before we start to wrap up. But thank you for those of you who are sending your children to school 2 days a week, who happen to come 4 days a week. For those of you who have made the decision to attend fully, like this feedback you've given me today is really, really helpful to continue to refine our process. So thank you to those of you who have taken the time this morning to ask questions, to provide feedback. It is all helpful. And in fact, I'm going to sign off right now and go to a principals group with the superintendent and the other principals at the other schools. So again, thank you, to our PTO for organizing this. Very, very helpful. And again, if you do have any feedback for us, you can always email it to me. You can reach out to the PTO. We do have a standing monthly meeting. I know that we're meeting a little bit later today to discuss some of the other pieces, but again, thank you for spending the time with us this morning, and hopefully some of the information that you've gathered will be helpful to you. Share it with your friends because I know not everybody can be here today. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. This was great. It was really helpful. And yeah, I appreciate everyone tuning in. If you have questions, definitely let Jess and I know. We're here to help as well. And I think that's about it. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.